Since Halloween is right around the corner, what are some scary, unexplained phenomena that you've experienced? One day, I was with my friends, and suddenly my head started getting heavy, and my vision began to white out, to the point where I couldn't see anything at all. I immediately thought that someone could have drugged me, and asked my friends to help me walk to a place where I could get some air and sit down. My sight was coming back, but I couldn't speak or express anything, couldn't respond or answer what my friends were asking. Somehow I got into a trance, and it felt like I was seeing my surroundings from an above me perspective. My friend called my mom, and she picked me up. I still couldn't respond until I got home and went to the bathroom. 3 days later my mom received a call from my grandpa, and I immediately knew what was going on. He told her that my dad had passed away, and was found dead in his bathroom. I live with my mom, and my dad used to live in other state. The forensic report showed that he died in that exact date, and probably around the moment I've had that episode.
Something similar happened to my mom, when my grandpa, her dad, passed away. They say that when you die, your soul reaches out to your loved ones. One day when my grandpa was in the hospital, all of a sudden my mom felt physically horrible, like her blood pressure dropped, she had trouble breathing, very dizzy, etc. Eventually it subsided, but she got a call minutes later that her dad had just passed. So it was like he was saying goodbye.
My stepdad found our puppy Eddie on the side of the road. Someone had thrown him out of a moving car, and he had broken legs, broken teeth, a swollen and closed eye, and was severely dehydrated. My stepdad took him to the vet, and paid quite a bit of money for surgeries to get Eddie fixed up. He got attached to the doggo, so we ended up adopting him. After that, even though he was the family dog, he was best buds with my stepdad. Anywhere my stepdad was around the house, you could find Ed tagging along. Eddie and I grew up together. He died while I was in college, and my parents buried him in a pet cemetery. Since it was sort of sudden, and I was far away, I didn't get to say goodbye. A few months after that, I had a dream where Eddie comes and find me. His hair is matted and dirty, and his flesh looks kind of rotted, but he's wagging his tail and seems really happy to see me again. Eddie starts leading me down a hazy path, and the farther we go, the faster his tail wags. Finally, we get to this giant wall of mist that extends across the entire horizon and rises higher than I can see. Eddie gets real close to it before trotting back to me. He licks my hand, gives me a couple of nose boops, and whines a little. Then he turns around again and starts to do that happy dog prance toward the wall, until he finally passes through it. I can sort of see his outline jumping up and down excitedly next to a human-shaped figure. I jog after Eddie and reach my hand out to touch the wall, hoping I'll be able to pass through it, too. That's when my cell phone rings in real life, waking me up. When I answer it, my mom is on the other end crying. My stepdad had just died of a heart attack. On the anniversary of my grandmother's death, in the middle of the night, my family was woken up by an iPod that had been shuffled and started playing "If Today Was My Last Day" by Nickelback on full volume.
Wow. Talk about evil spirits.
When I was in high school, my younger brother and I shared a bedroom. His bed was on one side of the room, and mine was on the other. My brother was an avid sleepwalker, and would also talk in his sleep all of the time. Sharing a bedroom with him, it was unsettling at first, but I eventually got used to it. One night, it's about 3 a.m., and I suddenly wake up from a deep sleep, instantly alert. I had this urge to look towards my brother's bed. I felt a presence in the room. When I turned my head, I saw a tall, skinny shadow/human-like figure, and it was reaching its hand down towards my sleeping brother's face. Its hand got maybe an inch away before its head jerked to the side, and looked at me staring at it, frozen. The shadow then faded, and moved up into the air, vanishing through the ceiling. Immediately, my brother shot up out of his bed, stood, and walked to the light switch. He turned it on, and looked at me. In a very calm and solemn voice, he says,
"Did you feel it? Did you feel the hand?"
He then turned off the light, and went back to his bed. I hid under my covers the rest of the night. My brother doesn't remember any of it.
My daughter's school prom. We had brought a beautiful gown and shoes, and they were hanging safely in her wardrobe. The evening of the prom, she went upstairs to get ready and shouts down to me,
"Thanks for getting everything ready for me, Mom."
Well, I hadn't been in her room at all. When I went up to see what she was talking about, I found her dress laying on the bed, her shoes next to her dresser, and perfume on her dresser. I didn't say anything so she wouldn't freak out, but it spooked me. After that, there were other instances, like a certain perfume appearing on her dresser, wardrobe doors closing by themselves, etc. After a while we got used to it, and would just say thank you when anything happened.
Good manners.
What a helpful ghost.
That is definitely one of those ghosts who are like,
"Hey, instead of scaring them every night, doing things really messed up, why don't I just help them do everyday tasks instead?"
My roomie and I had something like that. One day he was loading up the dishwasher, he put the last dish in, and little Casper pushed the rack into the dishwasher.
I worked in a hospital. As the evening supervisor for the food service department, one of my jobs was to lock up the department, then have security come and verify that it was locked. I walked into one of the big conference rooms to make sure it was clean, and turn off the lights. There was a man standing next to the podium. He was an old man with gray hair. He was wearing brown pants, a light shirt, and an old golf hat. He also had a cane. He seemed as real as everyone else. I thought he was lost, so as I reapproached him, I asked if I could help him. He did not reply, but smiled at me. I asked again, and again he didn't reply, but nodded. I asked if he was lost, and needed help finding something. As I spoke, I drew closer to him, so by this point, I was only about 6 feet away from him. I asked again if I could help him, and he just smiled at me, turned away, and walked through the solid brick wall. I was so shocked it took me a few seconds to react. I went to the wall, and pushed on it, but, as I said, it was solid and cold. I went out into the hall, and looked at the other side of the wall. There was no one there. I went back inside, turned off the lights, and locked up the room. When I went back to my staff, who were finishing their chores, they all asked if I was okay, because I was evidently very pale. When they were done, and clocked out, I called security for their final walkthrough. When we came to that conference room, the door was still locked, but the light was on. The security guy unlocked the room, turned off the light, and locked it back up. He then walked me out to my car. On our way past the window to that room, we both stopped, and looked at each other. The light was on again. Neither of us went back to turn it off again that night.
Happiness can always be found in the darkest of times, if one only remembers to turn on the light.
r/Unexpected Dumbledore. I've spilled milk on the counter once, and it disappeared. And it wasn't just a drip, it was a good miss when pouring. I grabbed a towel, turned around, and it was gone. To be fair, if a ghost wants some of my milk, and will clean it up too, I ain't gonna be mad.
I've heard so many stories of objects being dropped, and seemingly clipping into the floor, or non-existence, like what you are describing. Wouldn't it be scary if that happened to people? Like some missing people who seemed to vanish, and never get found, just fell out of existence, or into a void between dimensions. It creeps me out, the thought of that.
I live in a loft, and one night I am chillin' in bed, and I hear my girlfriend talking downstairs. I then hear her say,
"That's weird. I thought you were upstairs."
I then chime in, "I am upstairs." She ran upstairs so fast, it would make your head spin. She claims to have seen someone that looked like me downstairs, my twin. The strange thing is, about a month later, I am downstairs making myself a drink, and I see her walk by me out of the corner of my eye. I asked her a question, and she didn't answer. I thought it was a little weird. I went upstairs, and saw that she was in bed, and hadn't been downstairs for hours. Nearly shat my pants. Basically, we have been seeing each other's doppelgangers in the house, and my girlfriend is very freaked out. She claims it's happened about 3 times to her here.
You might want to check on carbon and radon levels, just to be on the safe side.
I'm intrigued. Please enlighten me.
There is a famous post where a guy thinks someone is breaking into his apartment and moving things around. Notes mysteriously appear around his apartment as well. Turns out, he had carbon monoxide poisoning, which causes memory loss and lost time.
I'm not saying it's a good idea, but I think you should try banging her doppelganger.
Doppelganger. I used to have a little cabin down a dirt road, outside of Charleston, South Carolina. It was fairly isolated, built on an old farm near the site of the historic Belvedere School. On more than one occasion I was woken up by a little girl's voice saying,
Hi?
I never saw anything, just an excited,
Hi?
and then I'd be awake with my heart pounding.
I'm also from Chucktown. I saw a ghost in the house I grew up in, multiple times. That town is haunted.
Decided to go get gas one night. It was kind of late, around 30 past midnight. Get in my car, turn it on, and start rolling forward down the road. As I get closer to the light on the corner, I notice a girl. She was wearing a white Victorian-era dress. I slowed down, because I didn't know if she was going to walk across, or not. She just looked at me, and did one of those princess waves. Very uncool of her, 'cause I was not comfortable coming back home after gassing up.
A group of friends, and I once watched a light bob around in the night sky for an hour or so, and eventually it flew over us. It looked like a standard disc-shaped UFO. I even remember seeing smaller lights in it. I feel crazy talking about it, but I have to trust what I saw.
I've seen what I might describe as UFOs twice now, within 3 months of each other back in 2015. The first time it was the golden orbs everyone sees everywhere, and luckily I was with my mom who saw them too, so I know I'm not nuts. The second time I was driving home, and about a mile from the house saw sort of a diamond-shaped object, red on one side, green on the other. Thought it was a helicopter until I got up close, and it moved like no helicopter I've ever seen. Life pro tip: if this ever happens to you, go straight home, and write down everything you remember including the date. Then, when you remember it later, and think you're losing your mind, you'll at least have some solid proof that at the time you didn't think you were hallucinating. I have weird coincidences happen that remind me of departed family members, but so far no actual ghost sightings that I've been able to recognize. My mom has, and says they're really not scary to her anyway.
Back in high school, I used to sit on the floor of my closet to do my hair and makeup. I had a little setup in there, and it worked out well since everything was out of sight. Anyway, I'm in there getting ready to head out for the night. First thing that happens is the lights in my room, not in the closet, start to slowly dim and get bright. That happens once or twice. I continue to get ready. Then a few minutes later, my bedroom door, which is right next to me, slams closed. When I try and open it, it won't budge. I'm still sitting on the floor in my closet, but I'm reaching as far as I can for the doorknob, when I hear a man whisper, not but an inch from my ear.
Oh my God.
I'm up and out of my room in a flash. I wouldn't sleep in there for days. Just thinking about it now creeps me the F out. I'll never forget that voice.
You didn't let him finish. He was trying to say,
Oh my God. You look fabulous.
Mine's not crazy scary, but it is true. I was in the living room with my grandma. We were the only ones home. She was working on a crossword puzzle, and I was messing around on my iPad. TV was off, windows were closed. All of a sudden, clear as day, I hear my name being whispered, but since it was so quiet it sounded loud. I looked up to my grandma, thinking it was her, asking her if she said something. She said,
No, but I heard your name.
This is the creepiest one I have read so far. It reminds me of the story where the girl hears the mom calling her name, but then the real mom pulls her into a closet, or something like that, saying,
I heard it too.
Or this one: I begin tucking him into bed, and he tells me,
Daddy, check for monsters under my bed.
I look underneath for his amusement, and see him, another him, under the bed, staring back at me, quivering, and whispering.
Daddy, there's somebody on my bed.
I'll bring out this story again. It happened to me 7 years ago, and I can't figure it out, but I lost an hour of time in what felt to me like minutes. At the time I was working from home after a serious illness diagnosis. I had settled into a routine, up at 7 a.m., and do house stuff, and shower, then at 8 a.m. start prepping my work, and laying out my day. Phone calls, and emails from 8 to 9. This is all I remember. It was 7:55, and I brewed a cup of Keurig coffee, on my kitchen located on the main floor of my house. I went upstairs to my office, and turned on my computer to settle in, and realized I forgot the coffee in the kitchen. I went back downstairs, and got the coffee as soon as I realized I forgot it. Couldn't have been more than the time it took Windows to boot up, but I took a sip, and the coffee was cold. Not warm, but actually cold. I thought my Keurig was broke, but I looked at the clock, and it said 9:14. So whereas I expected it to be 8:05 max, somehow an hour, and 10 minutes passed without explanation. It was very bothersome. I have no idea where that hour went. I have never had any blackout before, or since, no seizures, and the meds I was on shouldn't have caused a lapse like that. I don't think I fell asleep because, I distinctly remember, typing my password, and saying out loud, "Shit, I forgot the coffee." It kinda left me uneasy a bit. Nothing like that had ever happened to me before, or since. I applied to join MI5 once, the British Secret Service. They rejected my application. I found the rejection letter halfway up my stairs. I was alone in the house, and hadn't checked my mail that day.
Obviously planted by an MI5 spy.
Unless my postman can put some serious spin on the letters, pitching them down the hall, and halfway up the stairs, I can't see any other possible explanation.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out my other videos. Also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and ring the notification bell.